Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Tobique, Mactaquac.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to rise once again in the People's House and to address my colleagues here on a subject of great importance that, yes, we have discussed many times, but there's a good reason for that being discussed. It's because it's on the minds of Canadians every day. They fill up their cars. Every day they pay their heat bills. Every day they go get groceries. They're looking at soaring cost of living that's affecting their bottom line at the end of every week and every month. The burden that's upon Canadians cannot be and must not be overlooked by their representatives who stand in this House. I can't help but commence my thoughts by reflecting on an ancient writing that I read recently, and there seems to be some resonance with it, is that there was once a nation that got into some trouble. They were into a period of great difficulty. Their people were suffering under all kinds of different circumstances and surrounded by different foes, and threats were emerging from different places. And it said they came to a place called the Valley of Achor, and in the Valley of Achor, there was a promise to place a door of hope. What I like about this is that even in the midst of pain and in the midst of adversity, we still have hope. And hope is that thing that has a way of rising to the top in the times of adversity. And I think Canadians, even though they're frustrated, they're weary, they're overtaxed, and they're burdened, they're looking ahead with hope in this season, saying, we have an opportunity to change course. Their frustration remains is that they just can't get to take advantage of that opportunity fast enough. They want to express how they're feeling. They want to have a say in what's happening in their country. They want to be able to have their voices heard as it relates to the level of taxation they're under. And they're asking, I hear it regularly, how soon can we go to the polls? How soon can we get an election so that we can change direction in this country? And I think it would behoove the members of this House to respond to that cry by voting in favor of our non-confidence motion and heading to the polls to give Canadians an opportunity to make a choice. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians are suffering. And 7 out of 10 provinces and 70% of Canadians agree, including our nation's finest in the military that I just witnessed just last week in visiting a local food bank. They're stating very clearly what we're seeing is duress and financial pressure on everyday households of more and more Canadians who are struggling to make ends meet as a result of the carbon tax. This government has led us to record food bank usage. We're seeing tent cities pop up all over our country at levels we've never seen before. Single moms are choosing between heating their homes and feeding their families. Seniors are lying awake at night worrying, how can I meet and pay the bills that are coming when my expenses continue to rise, but my income is fixed? I see it on the face of parents who wonder, how will we ever afford secondary education for our children and post-secondary education when we can't even meet the month-to-month needs of our household, let alone put away savings for our children's education? I see it on the brows of working families and Canadian workers from coast to coast to coast. They're working harder and harder every day and making less and less at the end of the day. The frustration is mounting, the anger is growing, and they are needing an outlet, and they want to express and have their voices heard. And the best way to let them have their voices heard is by allowing them to express the direction they want our country to take as it pertains to this level of taxation at a ballot box. Let's allow them to do that by granting them the election that they so desperately want. Dr. Thomas Sowell, a renowned economist, has stated, the welfare state is the oldest con game in the world. First, you take people's money away quietly, then you give some of it back to them flamboyantly. It's amazing how that is reminiscent of what we're facing right now. They're taking more and more of our money And yet, when they give it back in a portion of what they take, they celebrate it like they're doing some great favor to the Canadian citizen. That's right. It's like you work hard, you get $10 in one hand, and all of a sudden, the Prime Minister comes along in his government, they grab that $10 bill out of your hand that you worked so hard for, run it through the bureaucratic spin cycle machine, do grand announcements, proclaim they're going to roll back the tides and heal the oceans and bring temperatures down, and then at the end of the day, they come back to you and put a $5 bill in your hand and want you to celebrate what a great favor they did for you. You have fallen behind, you've spent money, and you have nothing to show for it but a grandiose virtue signal, big announcements, and less money in your pocket to take care of your family's needs and your family's priorities. It's time Canadians had the opportunity to express what kind of Canada they want in the future and what direction they want to go. I think it's time that we heard what they're saying. The carbon tax is the most expensive virtue signal in the history of our planet as it relates to environmentalism. We're spending more and achieving less. We can't point to results. In fact, recently, not that long ago, we had the Environment Commissioner of Canada. He came and gave a report to the committee. I had the opportunity to be in that committee that day, and I asked the commissioner a question. I said, Mr. Commissioner, can you please tell Canadians how much carbon has been reduced in Canada's atmosphere as a result of the implementation of the carbon tax, which has been in some jurisdictions in this country now for over 15 years? To that, the commissioner replied, Mr. Bragdon, we have no such metric. So the landmark signature piece of legislation towards environment that this government has produced can show no tangible results to average Canadians as to its effectiveness. Madam Speaker, I would challenge this government to reconsider immediately continuing down this road, let alone augmenting that carbon tax by 23% on April 1st. It's a failed strategy and a failed approach and has no means by which we can prove its effectiveness. It's time to change course. And the best way for Canadians to have a say in the direction of this country and the course we want to take is to allow them to choose the approach they want the government that they choose to have. And I think that choice will be very clear for Canadians when that time comes. And hopefully it comes sooner rather than later. These measures aren't working. In fact, if they were, why is it that our ranking among nations in tackling climate change has slipped and fallen from 57th to 63? We're falling behind. It's not working. So if it's not working, it's time to change course. But rather than listening to the Canadian people, the Prime Minister is doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on this failed policy. The great Winston Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill once said, "We contend that for the nation to try and tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket trying to lift himself up by the handles. It doesn't work. It's a failed strategy. It's a failed approach. And we need to get better at doing things that actually work. And what actually works is continuing down the road of better technology, better extraction practices, better energy development, that Canada has some of the best practices in the world. And we need to stand up for our Canadian producers, our Canadian energy providers, and get on their side and talk about the good news that is Canada's energy, rather than talk it down and punish their citizens for using the things that they need every day. We need to stand on the side of Canadians and say, no, this is enough. We're going to change approach. And we are going to make sure that we get to the other side. And I want to say that, Madam Speaker, before I wrap up my remarks, I am sharing my time with Ms. Rachel Thomas, our member from Lethbridge, Alberta. She will be sharing here in just a moment. I want to conclude with this. When I visited that food bank just a week ago, me and the member from Peterborough, Kawartha, when the food bank directors looked at us and told us that right now up to 50 military families who are current and active members of the military are utilizing the food bank for services, something hit me, and it hit me hard. That this is unacceptable in a country like Canada, and it needs to change. And what came back to me was what the veteran said to the Prime Minister not that long ago, just a few short years ago, when he said, Mr. Prime Minister, We gave our best for you. We gave our best to this country. We sacrificed so much, and he was a wounded vet. But he said, in our time of need, the government has not been there the way we need them to be. And you know what the Prime Minister's response was? He said, sir, you're asking for us to do more than what we can give right now. Well, you know what? Canadians are telling this Prime Minister and this government, you're asking more from us than what we can give you right now. And they want a break, and they need relief, and they need it now. Let's have this non-confidence vote. And
Question.